I only got a certain amount of time because David has some other very important things he wants to share with you. But I have to thank you so much for that introduction. And one of the reasons why David and I are so close, because when I came out of Afghanistan in November of 2007 and decided to run for election in 2008, you know, there were not a lot of people that wanted to support someone that couldn't write their own check to their own campaign. But when I sat down with David at Citizens United, he got behind me then. He continues to, you know, support the efforts and the endeavors that we are looking to establish for our great nation. And it is so important that we can once again get men and women who have been willing to take that oath, to say that they will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Those are the type of men and women, the type of honor, integrity, and character that we need to be here in Washington, D.C., so that we can restore this great republic. I have the distinct honor of meeting a gentleman here who was a World War II veteran and served. Please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you for your service. You know, someone asked me, you know, why aren't you speaking over in the big ballroom? Standing here speaking before a man that's a member of the greatest generation is far more important than standing in that ballroom. And so I want to thank you because you represent that generation that my father served in World War II as well. And there are Vietnam veterans that are here. You guys represent the generation that my older brother served in. There are gentlemen that are here and women that are here from Iraq and Afghanistan. That's the generation that I served in. And in January of this year, I had the incredible opportunity to stand there for my nephew who went from Captain West to Major West. It is that legacy of service which will maintain these great United States of America. When you think about the first time when Americans answered the call to service, and they stood at Concord Bridge, when they stood at Lexington Green, all the way to today, standing on freedom's ramparts in Afghanistan, all over the world. And it's so important that we have people that will not turn their backs on those men and women who are out there willing to give the last full measure of devotion, just the same as President Abraham Lincoln talked about at Gettysburg. We as conservatives must start talking about national security and foreign policy. We cannot continue to believe that every dollar in Washington, D.C. is equal, because the most important responsibility of the federal government is to provide for the common defense. And if you read the preamble of the Constitution, it says promote the general welfare. We have people in Washington, D.C., such as the President, that believe that you're supposed to provide the general welfare. And they only talk about the common defense. But if you think about what just happened a week ago when the Secretary of Defense, who now I see as the Secretary of Appeasement and Compromise and Surrender, stood and talked about decimating our military capability. It was only 3 or 4 days later that Vladimir Putin went into the Crimea. See, when you look at what we sent men and women to do in World War II, it was because after World War I we decimated our military forces. And we had to ramp up those military forces. And if you know something about history, you know that the Japanese saw an opportunity and they attacked us at Pearl Harbor. You know about the first naval engagement in Coral Sea when we lost. You know about the surrender we had to go through at Corregidor. You know about Kasserine Pass in North Africa. We suffered losses at the beginning of World War II because we were not ready. And then after World War II, what did we do to the United States military? We once again gutted it. We cut it down. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves sending a very understrength unit called Task Force Smith into Korea. And Task Force Smith was decimated by the North Koreans because Task Force Smith was still using outdated bazookas against brand new Soviet-style T-34 tanks, and they bounced off them. General Douglas MacArthur, who wanted to conduct the Incheon landing, had to delay the Incheon landing because we did not have enough Marines. We did not have enough assault amphibious craft to do the Incheon landing. The world is watching, and when the world senses a weak America, you will always have those people, dictators, theocrats, autocrats, who are going to look to challenge us. And we need to have men and women that can stand up to someone who is walking around as a faux commander-in-chief and tell him that your number one responsibility is to protect the men and women in uniform. Unfortunately, we have a president, we have an administration that believes that the vital national security interests of the United States of America is lifting don't ask, don't tell. We have people that believe that social egalitarianism is such an important thing that they are going to say that women should be in the special forces and the Rangers, not what should we be doing as far as enhancing their capability. We have a president that believes that the most important thing for the United States military is to have beards, turbans, and hijabs to be worn by people in the service. But yet they will turn to our veterans and say, we're cutting your benefits, we're cutting your cost of living allowance. They will turn to military families and say, we're cutting the commissary benefits that you have. They will turn to our men and women and say, we're going to cut you down in force strength so that those 8 and 9 combat tours of duty, they will be even more increased. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key things we have to be as conservatives, we have to be guardians of this republic. We have to stand up and talk about the issues, talk about the policies that make sure that, first and foremost, that we have peace through strength, which is what Ronald Reagan talked about. We cannot have this appeasement and surrender. David brought out that statistic, talking about the dearth of military servicemen and women that are serving over on Capitol Hill. But something else that a lot of people did not pay attention to was that in the last presidential election cycle, the first time in 77 years, sitting president and vice president and candidate for president and vice president had never served in the United States military. Something is wrong. Because once upon a time, this nation looked to the men and women who wore a uniform to take that uniform off and continue their oath of service, their oath of honor to this great nation. And that's what we must continue to do, is get men and women who will stand not just on freedom's ramparts, they will take another type of hill, Capitol Hill. And I believe so I want to thank David for all the efforts that he does to bring to light the service and sacrifices of our veterans, but not just those veterans, but the families as well, who serve right beside them. Not just the spouses, but also the children, who have to look at their mothers and fathers and hear them say those words that they don't know if they may be finite, and that's goodbye. So we must remember those young children as well, as same as the spouses, as the mothers and fathers. But think about this, and I'll close on this point. Are we truly a great nation when we can say to 4 Americans under a terrorist attack that we don't have the resources to save you? Are we truly a great nation when we will look at a situation like that and say that it was all because of a video, which we know is not the truth? Are we truly a great nation when we can look at a terrorist attack that was done at Fort Hood, Texas, and call it workplace violence? Are we truly a great nation when we basically say to the rest of the world that we surrender? Vladimir Putin is looking and laughing at us right now. I say that somehow we here as conservatives, we wipe that smile off of his face. By restoring our military strength, which is the greatest deterrent to evil, which is the greatest deterrent to our adversaries and enemies, and it is the greatest means by which we build confidence with our allies. So as you walk around CPAC this weekend, and you hear all these great speeches, you remember one single thing, that the most important title of a President of the United States of America is Commander-in-Chief. God bless you all.